Exactly. So we can go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. My name is Anita, and I'm the program manager of Artemis. Artemis is a program of National Wildlife Federation getting women into hunting, angling, and conservation leadership. And I'm really excited for this discussion we're going to have today on uplifting really cool. I'm trying to resist the urge to use a cuss word, but really cool differently abled hunters and anglers. And all of the amazing things that they're doing and advice they have on making hunting and angling more accessible. This is a topic that's close to my own heart now that I'm navigating some new disabilities that I was recently diagnosed with and some health problems I recently developed, and figuring out like how to not only how to hunt and fish differently with knowing that my body has different needs and restrictions, but also thinking about a long-term career in fieldwork, doing wildlife conservation and what that means for me. So really excited to hear from all three of you today. Thank you for joining and being willing to share your stories and your advice. First, I just want to start by asking each of you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your journey as a hunter or angler. So I'll invite Ashley to go first.
Okay. How much of you want like our stories, kind of how we got to where we are? Is that
Sure. Yeah,
okay?
whatever you want to share about yourself and your
Okay.
journey.
All right. Well, my name is Ashley Linville. I'm calling in from Cody, Wyoming. And I was born and raised right outside of Indianapolis. Was a four-sport athlete, hit about 6 feet tall in like sixth grade. And so was a good Hoosier girl, played basketball and all the other sports. Loved to be outdoors. Ended up coming out on a family vacation to Wyoming in the late 90s and just absolutely fell in love with the mountains and the cowboys and the animals and all the outdoor adventures and everything like that. Got to come back another year for a girls' camp at a ranch and ended up having an accident there where I fell off of a hay rack and landed on the wooden handle of the pitchfork I had been using and blew out my back at T12. And so that caused instant paralysis. And so I've been paraplegic and using a manual wheelchair for about almost 30 years now. And so obviously when it first happened, I thought life in the outdoors was either completely over or would definitely be drastically changed. And what I found out was kind of just the opposite was that I had a larger drive and a stronger drive now to get outdoors and to get involved. Was not a hunter before my accident, and so have never hunted able-bodied, have only hunted as a person living with a disability and in a wheelchair. And so it's been really interesting and a lot of fun to kind of discover a new competitive arena for myself in the great outdoors. But just the joy in bringing other people into that and seeing the healing it's brought about in my life, but just the how rewarding it can be to show that to other people as well, whether it's just through opportunity or adaptive equipment or whatever it is. But just love to be outdoors regardless of my physical abilities and love to get other people out as well.
Thanks so much, Ashley. And I will also say, when I first was got some of my diagnosis earlier this year, I was talking to Artemis co-founder Jess Johnson, which is who I met Ashley through at More Than Gatherers last year. There's still 5 spots open at More Than Gatherers this year. So sign up if you haven't. But I was throwing myself a little pity party about it of like, this was the year I was going to get an elk, and now what am I going to do? I had back surgery that led to some nerve damage and got diagnosed with fibromyalgia and a whole bunch of other stuff. And it was like, no, what? I'm never going to be able to hike 20 miles uphill both ways in the snow. And she was like, I do not. But Ashley gets elk all the time. If she can do it, you can. So that convinced me, like, okay, I'll be an elk hunter yet. So thank you, Ashley, for that.
Yeah.
I'll turn it over to Mike. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Mike Burnside. I live in Northeast Oklahoma and have been here. I've been in Oklahoma practically all my life. Uh, my hunting journey, I from the time I could walk, we lived on a farm in Oklahoma, and I hunted, fished, everything. And when I got married in '89, my wife and I lived in Texas for a while, and we moved back to Oklahoma in the Tulsa area, Northeast Oklahoma, and we had our children, and we actually had triplets, and we lost one son, in infancy, And our daughter, Kinsey, was she was diagnosed with moderate to severe cerebral palsy. She has always been in a wheelchair, never known anything different, and she's always wanted to do anything and everything there was. And we always told her when she was young, as long as mom and dad were physically able to help her do it, that we would do it. Well, I always said I didn't know she's going to take it that serious because she does anything and everything. I mean, we have she's ridden on a snowmobile with me. I velcroed her to me. We've been on jet boats. She's it, just anything you can imagine. And she requires a caregiver for basically anything and everything. She has no fine motor skills. Uh, so it wasn't until she was getting out of high school and her and her brother, we call them surviving twins, that he and I had hunted and fished, while we are growing up. Well, she was always involved in school choir, special needs cheerleading, things like that. Never even crossed my mind that she would even like to hunt and fish. And so when she graduated, and there's an opportunity came up to go with a foundation, and I asked her, well, I said, if it didn't work out, you and I will go hunting. We'll figure out deer hunting. And she helped me hand over hand. She basically was over, when I was aiming the rifle, she had her hand over mine to do it. And well, I've got a recording somewhere, a audio that we're in a ground blind, and she told me that I always wondered when it was my time. I said
Mm.
it's always been Bubba, his time. She always called her brother Bubba, and now it's my time, and that always hit me hard. She'd always been wanting to go. I just didn't know it. Didn't think it's possible. Well, and that was in 2018. So it's been 8 years now. Well, she did. I mean, we went turkey hunting when she was 15. She's now 30, going to be 31 this fall. And she got a turkey when she's 15. The Rocky Mountain elk members here helped us go on a turkey hunt. And so it was, but like I said, she started in 2018, big game. And from we've really advanced. She's a vacuum air actuator. She sucks on a vacuum tube to fire a rifle. I aim the rifle. Mom helps her with the vacuum tube and the safety. And so it's a teamwork to make it all done. But she loves hunting and fishing. I mean, she has absolutely loves to go. And we've hunted practically everything there is. So that's pretty much, I think I've always said, for someone with total disability that's never been able to provide for a family, that is such a big self-worth, uh, that she's able to provide for others. So that's pretty much our story.
I love that. And she is a provider. You guys are always getting after it. I love seeing your adventures on social media. It's always fun to see. Jess calls them the Artemen. They're really supportive men that love getting the women in the Artemis community out. And I love seeing the father-daughter adventures you guys have. Dana, we'll turn it over to you.
Man, I don't know how to fault that. Those are both such incredible stories. So it is incredible to hear both of your stories of still pushing through and frankly still knowing deep down that we can still accomplish all of these things. Because myself included. So obviously, I wear my disability on my face. I went partially blind in 2019, just ahead of my very first field season for my own conservation work, which is not focused on game species. I study bats, so my specialty is the ecology of migratory bats and North American bats in general. However, I am also a falconer, and it was in 2020 that I finished my falconry apprenticeship, but that kind of stems back to when I was doing my master's degree in Northern Arizona, and I picked up a part-time job and walked in my first day, looked over to the left, and there was a Harris hawk sitting in the back room. And that was how I met my first mentor in falconry, who's still located in Northern Arizona today. But that kind of stoked a passion in me that I had kind of forgotten about because I did not grow up with a lot of exposure to hunting. because I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, pretty close to the city. And while there's definitely some family members in my family that would go out hunting, it was never something that I really had access to myself. But I always had an interest in it. And so whenever I started learning more and more about falconry and not just its connection with hunting, but also this very intimate connection with conservation as well, and being able to work one-on-one with, frankly, a wild animal as well, in a context that um, was a really beautiful relationship to me because through falconry, you're forming a relationship not just with the game that you're hunting, but also the bird that you're working with to accomplish the entire task of hunting. And I even work with a dog now. So then it's a tri-species relationship where I'm
Mhm.
working with the dog is working with the bird, and the bird is working with me too. So when I moved to Saskatchewan, Canada for my PhD work, still studying migratory bats, around 2020, I was just walking down my road one day after having been unsuccessful finding a sponsor for falconry because that is the only way to become a falconer is to learn directly from another falconer themselves. Someone was just passing by in their truck and I saw a peregrine falcon in their front seat. And I was like, I think I know what's happening here. And with a little bit of sleuthing and getting connected with my local wildlife federation, I found who became my sponsor here in Saskatchewan. And that's when I started flying a peregrine falcon. And in 2023 is when I got my dog. I think it was either 2022 or 2023 was when I incorporated my dog into the mix as well, who is a Springer Spaniel. And with falconry, it's really just it's taken my love of conservation and wildlife to the next level, and also has helped me really understand just how important the relationship hunters have to the land, to the game, and to the predators in the ecosystem as well. And that also translates a lot into the work that I do with my own research because it's nothing out there exists in a vacuum. And I think being able to participate in something like falconry has been a wonderful lens into the whole dynamic of everything.
Thanks, Dana. I'm still convinced falconry is basically magic. Um,
Listen, I'm a like the the stories of possibly being my small town witch are not to me. I'm a falconer bat biologist who also wears an eye patch. Like
I love it. And well, and there's been a newspaper article about you that referred you as feral, right?
my local town paper, which just services this area, and like this is the one that I got copies for mom and dad as well. Yeah, the headline was "City Girl Gets More Feral Every Year."
That's a compliment.
Yeah, that would be like
That was the
golden
peak. That was
text
the
up
peak
on
for
my
me.
wall. I love it. Well, Dana, we'll start with you. We'll just go in reverse this time. I want to ask each of you to share maybe one of your favorite or more memorable hunting stories.
Yeah, actually, I always kind of love this question because there is definitely a moment for me where uh it was a really it was both one of the most terrifying but emotional moments with my falconry bird Eos, who, and I will be very upfront about it, my falconry bird did pass away this past fall from
Hmm.
avian influenza, which once they contract something like that, there is absolutely nothing you can do. So it was heartbreaking, but she was having the best season we had had to date. So I was very proud of her up until the very end. Um, but her first hunting season, and just to get a little bit more into working with a bird like that, they have big personalities. Oh my goodness. So like you don't really build a relationship with a rifle or a bow, but for my killing machine, I had to build a very strong trust relationship with her. And something that she taught me was that she was not a very affectionate bird. She did not like to be touched or coddled. She let me do what I needed to do. She never was, I would say, what I would call aggressive from a peregrine falcon, but she was definitely not affectionate. And I respected that. She had her boundaries. I was like, you do you, girl. I understand. You don't want me to, like, that's fine. Like, I would love to pet your head, but if that's not what we have here, that's not what we have here, and I can respect that. Um, and and she did turn into a wonderful partner as well. She let me put her onto anyone else's arm or fist at any time. I was just like, you just need to respect her boundaries and she'll be cool with you. And she would be. Um, There was this must have been in probably late November, early December in Saskatchewan. So there's snow everywhere, but we're at that moment where the fields are still like soaking in the water. So they are mud. They are straight up mud. And there's still also snow. And there's still ducks around in upland game. And I had found a pile of ducks for her. And so I let her up. We're doing our thing. I'm trying to run and get the ducks, but the pond was a little bit too big, and I did not have my dog yet, which means there was no one to go into the water and flush them out, which, yes, he would do in the snow, and he loved to do it, and he never cared. Um, and he'll still continue to do it, but I didn't have him yet. And so these ducks just went into the middle, and there was nothing I could do. And then I biffed it. I biffed it so hard and I was just tumbling over. And it was that scenario where, and P.S., yes, this is like, I do fully understand. I was half blind at this time and I'm just running into things and I'm just falling over. And Eos is a wild bird and she got bored. And I wasn't delivering for her. My job in the relationship is to deliver for her. And I did not deliver. And so she decided to leave and she just left. And that is why falconers will most commonly fly their birds with usually two pieces of radio telemetry, often with peregrines, a GPS transmitter, and or radio, just radio telemetry where you have to listen for the blip. I could not afford a GPS transmitter yet at this time, so all I had was VHF radio telemetry. And I followed that bird going from like half section to half section, going along all of the gravel roads. It's muddy. The sun is going down. It got dark. It got straight up dark, and I finally found her. She was smack dab in the middle of a massive section of agricultural land. And in the dark, I probably walked 3 to 4 miles getting into the middle of this field. Thankfully, it had been harvested already, and there was a small stand of trees, and it is pitch black outside in the snow slash also mud. And then I had to figure out which side of the trees she was on. And then in the dark, I had my radio receiver that had the beep, beep, beep going with her transmitter. I had my phone camera in one hand, and then in the other hand, I had a lure, which was supposed to lure her down when she's flying away. But at night, how is she supposed to see this? So I'm shining it, swinging a lure that has a quail on the end of it. And I hear up in the tree a little rustle and a little bell because she wears bells when flying. And I hear her little bells, and God damn it, sorry, pardon my French. She flew down at night, to a lure that she could probably barely see because I could barely see it because I'm half blind and having a phone light to light the thing up. But she came down, and for the first time, she hopped onto my fist and she nuzzled right
Hmm.
into me while chowing down on this quail. And that is my most memorable story because that I think was the one time that she showed affection towards me. Now, that could very well just be projection, but you know what? It made my heart feel warm. That could have just been extreme relief, but it felt like she was truly showing some affection.
I'm going to choose to believe that for you. That's what that sounds like to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also relief of like, oh my God, I was bored, but now I'm in survival mode and it's dark and I'm hungry. Where's mom?
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's right. So that's what it felt like to me. And after that, she was much better at staying closer by.
At least she learned. I can't
Yeah.
say the same for like my dogs or horses. They
Yeah.
take off and they don't learn. Mike, what's one of your favorite stories?
You know, Kinsey, each hunt, or fishing trip is she is so excited. You know, she's not influenced by social media. You know, she doesn't follow that stuff. She knows, it's just all pure emotion. And but one of her very first hunts was it was with the foundation, and we'd ask her, okay, what do you want to hunt? We went through pictures, showing her what different animals were and everything, and she decided on mule deer. And so it's okay, yeah, you're gonna go mule deer hunting. And we hunted outside of Cheyenne, Wyoming. We flew into Cheyenne, and they had we hunted with landowner had an alfalfa field, and we set up ground blinds, got her set up in it, and we saw every animal there was. Big elk came through, big, huge whitetails. And of course, his dad, I was like, oh my gosh, those whitetails. I was really excited. Of course, they elk, anything, but we could not find a mule deer. It would be there'd be little spikes come through. And we hunted for 3 days, and we were on the very last day. But up until that day, like I said, we've been seeing all these on the alfalfa field, and we were under a blizzard warning. She's out there. I mean, and I was so proud that she's sticking it out. She wants to go, and so we drive out there every morning, drive back. She's worn out. Well, the last morning we went there, uh, try to hunt, get that mule deer. Again, no mule deer. And so they said, hey, we've got another landowner. We can go hunt their ranch. And she said, we can come and hunt there. So we drove up there. We drove all around the ranch, looking, and we were driving around the top, and we saw a group of mule deer down in a valley, and we thought one of them was a small buck. And so we drove back down. We drove up the valley, and it's myself and her in the back seat of a four-door pickup, and there's the driver that actually hit, and he's a shooter on this one. I'm helping Kinsey with the vacuum tube, and then there's one other guy that's there to help assist us and everything, and he's in the passenger seat. So, and Mom didn't go that morning because we'd all three gone. But if Mom went, Janet is my wife. If she would have went, we would have had to take one more pickup, because there wasn't going to be enough room for how we were set up. And so she said, I'll just stay here this morning. She'd been with us the whole time. That morning she didn't go. And because that lays the groundwork for what happens later. And we drove up that valley, and we saw this group of mule deer. There's like 6 or 7 does, and there's one 4x4 small buck. He was a small buck, and we saw him. And I told Kinsey, I said, here's the deal, Kinsey. I said, there's a small mule deer buck, and or we can go this afternoon after we finish this, because this is around noontime, around that. And I said, we can go back to that alfalfa field, and you can try to shoot a big whitetail, because I was trying to lean her towards getting that big whitetail. And she said, no, I want a mule deer. I came for mule deer, and I want a mule deer. And so I was okay. Daddy, I'm proud. You want exactly what you came for. So they came down. They were feeding through the valley. We got set up, and with Kinsey, I always say her spasticity when she doesn't have the muscles per se, because she's the atrophy and everything, but when she gets excited, her her tone goes full strength. I tell people, when she's excited, her legs stick straight out, her back and everything. It's like trying to bend a 2x4. I mean, you cannot, and so I'm in the back seat trying to, get her calmed down. And we get up, get in position, and he is, says, okay, yeah, I've got a shot, because I tell her, how we do it when I'm on target. I whisper, when I whisper good, that means for them to take over, and I have to stay on target no matter what happens. And so I told him, okay, yeah, gave her the tube, she fired, and the buck went down. just a few seconds later. Her reaction, it was call mom, call mom, call mom. She wanted to let mom know right away. I mean, and I said, we don't have an internet signal. I said, we can't call mom. And then he said, okay, he's down all the way. And she just, went through it again. I mean, she was so excited. Her excitement level was just beyond anything. And it was it was such a moment that, that I did not know that she wanted to go hunting that bad. And for her to be able to provide for others, it was something neat to be a part of, to see how excited she was to finally be into it, and what it meant to her. So that was such a great moment just to be a part of.
I love that. And I'm totally picturing her that excited about like, call mom, call mom. She has
Yeah.
even over the internet. By the way, if you don't follow Mike on social media, you should, because he and Kenzie's adventures are so fun to see. But even through the screen, she just has this energy to her, and you can tell she's a Spitfire. So I'm really like picturing her that energized.
Yeah. She and the guy, the pastor, he had a phone and he just started videoing it. And that wasn't until the next day I got to watch the video, and I thought, man, that yeah, that's when it really hit me. That was really neat. And that it blew up Facebook for a while. It made the rounds. Just social media lady asked me if she could post it. I was like, well, sure. I didn't think a thing about it. And it just, people just loved her excitement, her the way it was contagious, how excited she got.
I love that. Well, Ashley, you know the joys and challenges of hunting in Wyoming. What's one of your favorite stories?
I would say one of my favorite hunting stories was very early on in my hunting career. I had a bunch of friends recommend that I put in for a bull elk tag, and they were like, it'll take you years to draw it, but go ahead and start putting in now. And of course, I drew it on the first time, which never has happened since on any tag I've put in for. But I drew this bull elk tag, and long story short, it was going to be kind of up in the mountains on a ranch, and it was going to be a rifle hunt. I was used to just doing archery, so it was going to be a lot of firsts for me. And if anyone knows me now, they know what a gearhead I am. Like, I love adaptive equipment. I love equipment that's not adaptive, but we make it work for folks that need it. But back then, I was still new to the game and I did not know a lot about anything. So I was using my manual chair to go hunting in. I was usually borrowing, a firearm or anything like that. But I got reached out to by a local company that said, hey, we'd like to come film your hunt and we'll help out however we can. They had no idea at the time what they were signing up for, and neither did I. But I remember we got to the ranch and they were trying to explain the terrain to us. And I looked over at my husband and he was looking at me and he was like, I don't know how in the world we're going to do this. And I was like, well, I don't either. Let's just go figure it out. And that was when we were quite a bit younger and we could still kind of cowboy things like that. But we loaded up and drove up as far as we could. And I remember we stopped and got out of the truck and they were like, well, the elk are way over there. And all I could think of was, okay, if the truck can't get there, there's no way I can get myself there. How's this going to work? And the next thing I know, the camera guy and the hunter that was with us and the ranch guide and everybody, they were like, "We have a plan. Will you let us try it?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, let's see what we can do." Next thing I know, they are like harnessing themselves to my wheelchair, and they're like, "We're just going to pull, and one of us is going to push, and we're going to see what happens." And I'm glad we got it on video because no one would ever have believed us that that's actually what we did. But next thing I know, I've got these pack mules that are the guys, and they're literally just hauling my chair across the. Luckily at the time I did not have I have hard rubber core tires and not like air like bike tires, or I'm sure we would have blown my tires out. But they just started hauling me up and down all these hills and places I never would have gotten to go by myself had these guys not physically hauled me into these places. And then we got to a certain point and they said, okay, now it's going to have to be all you because we can't be standing up anymore. And so next thing I know, I'm on the ground and they're rolling me up and down hills. And they're like dead man carrying me, where you put your arm over someone's shoulder and they grab the back of your pants and just haul you. At one point, I was like, I'm pretty sure I just rolled through a bunch of cactus, but I can't feel it. So I'm going to worry about that later. It was just one of those things where at this point, I was like, if we don't get an elk, we will still have such a great story to tell. And up and down and crawling and just all kinds of crazy things that I honestly don't know if physically I could do it now and survive. But I was a little bit younger back then and a little crazier. And so we finally got set up, and it's not even the hunt itself. I ended up harvesting a beautiful bull, But that wasn't even my favorite part. It was like what it took and the partnership it took to get there. And now a lot of times when I talk to people that need to get out into the outdoors and they just don't know how they're physically going to do it, I talk a lot about the equipment. And that's still so incredibly important. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the people that are around you. And obviously,
Yeah.
Mike's a perfect example of that. And if you surround yourself with the right people and they have the right attitude, then the disability kind of fades away. And it's just those people stepping in to face a challenge head on together. And so I will always remember that hunt. Even with all the adaptive equipment I have now, I don't think I could have done it. So the most redneck version was the one that ended up working out. But it was just good old-fashioned manpower and good old-fashioned creativity and ingenuity and some duct tape along the way. And I think a lot of times people think you have to have all this expensive equipment and have all these things. And yes, they're helpful, and I'm a huge fan of them. But at the end of the day, it's about other people and it's about that partnership and their attitude and your attitude and how you work together as a team. And since then, it's been incredibly rewarding to me to be able to then do that with other people because it's paying it forward to what was done to me all those years ago. So that'll always be one of my favorite stories. And again, it wasn't necessarily even about the harvest, it was about the journey and the partnership it took to get there. And that's something that will live with me until the day I die, those memories.
Sounds like some good-hearted guys. I know I'm a Lord of the Rings nerd because my first thought was like picturing Sam carrying Frodo up the mountain.
That
Like, I can't do it for you, but I can carry you.
was exactly what it was.
Love
All the way to Mordor. It was amazing.
it. Love that everyone on this call knows what I'm talking about too. That's great. Ashley, I think that leads really nice into our next question, which is just to ask if you guys have advice for people with disabilities who are interested in getting into hunting or the outdoors. And maybe you could also add if you have advice for folks who don't have disabilities but want to be a helper. What's some encouragement or some tips that you'd have that you found helpful?
One of the things I tell people all the time is there's no wrong way. As long as it's legal and ethical, then it's fine.
Yeah.
And people think all the time, like, well, that's not the right way, or that's not how everybody else is. I kid you not, I tease people a lot that if you've got the right attitude and enough duct tape, you can literally make anything work. And there are certain things, obviously, you have to take into consideration for people's health, depending on their disability. But at the end of the day, I've never met a single person with a disability that could not get out and do what they wanted to do. As long as you can make your needs known in whatever way that is, then there is a way to get you outdoors and enjoy what you want to do. And so attitude's probably the biggest part of it is if you think you can do it,
Yeah.
then we're going to find a way to make it happen. And then there is a lot of opportunity out there. I think people don't understand the amount of organizations and funding sources and opportunities that are out there that want to help people. It's their main mission is to get people outdoors. And so you might have to get outside your comfort zone a little bit. You might have to do some digging, but that's the beauty of the internet is you can find just about anything anymore. And there are so many good people out there that just are dying to get other people out. A lot of them have, I've hunted my whole life, I've been there, done that, and now I want to help other people. And I guess that kind of leads into what I would tell able-bodied people is just ask. I've had so many people that come up to me and say, I wanted to help, but I didn't want to offend someone or I didn't want to hurt their feelings and I didn't know. And I'm like, the only offensive thing to me is if you don't ask. And so I tell people all the time, just I'm not going to assume that you're trying to offend me. I'm not going to assume that you woke up in the morning and decided that you were going to try to ruin my day. I'm not worried about that. If you ask and you show me that you have the attitude and the heart to want to try, we'll figure out the rest of it. And so I think that's what holds back a lot of people from helping sometimes is that fear. And the bigger fear should be just not taking the opportunity to help people. And so, yeah, I guess just ask goes both ways. You have to have the courage to ask for help when you need it, and you have to have the courage to be willing and able to do, whatever it takes to get that to happen. But like I said, I've never run into a situation where we haven't figured it out eventually. It may not look legit, it may be partially feel illegal, but at the end of the day, it worked and we survived and we had a great time. And so those are the stories that I really like to hear and hopefully encourage other people to be a part of as well.
Yeah, you got dragged up a mountain and still got your elk. And I'm
Picked
assuming
out thorns for days and it was so worth it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Mike, any advice that you have?
Yeah, ditto to everything Ashley said. I mean, there's if your attitude is the biggest part of it. Thankfully we make a great team. Myself, Janet, and Kinsey. We all work together, do everything we need to. Uh, and there are so many organizations out there, that Google becomes your best friend. Google, depending on whatever state you're in. If you're in New Jersey, New Jersey handicap hunts, New Jersey handicap hunters, and you start going down that rabbit hole, you'll find contacts, who what does this, and I always remember, we've hunted with different foundations, and some of those, you'd go in and there's guys there, there's all sorts of volunteers. They've got everything set up. I mean, we there's been some that they needed help to figuring things out, but they're willing to do it all. But some of them, you know, I've had guys tell me after it's all over, I came into this thinking, oh, look, I'm gonna help this, little handicapped girl go hunting. I'm gonna make her day. And after it's all over, these guys have tears in their eyes, saying, I came here thinking I was gonna help her, and I can't tell you how much she helped me. I mean, there's guys that have hunted all their life and women that's all they've done, and they get to that point. Hey, I want to help somebody else. I want to bring somebody else out in the outdoors, and when they're able to see the impact it does, uh, yeah, it's life changing all the way around. And I tell people, it's if you're afraid where to get started, if you're able bodied, just ask somebody. Just like I said, Ashley said, just ask somebody, hey, what can I do to help you? And even if you're in a metro area, go down to a city park where they have a pond and just take them fishing. Get them out that first time, and you don't know how much that does for their soul just to be able to get out, get away from their normal activities. That you can do a world of good just in starting that motion, and that one thing will lead to 20 others. So yeah, just make that if you're able that invitation and let it go from there.
I love the tip on getting people out fishing, doing something small. Because when I had my back injury this past winter and was waiting on surgery, I had friends who would message me and say like, do you need me to bring you groceries? What can I do for you? And my answer was like, please just take me fishing. Like I can
Yeah,
figure out my groceries, but if I hook a fish, my back isn't strong enough to reel it in, and I need somebody to do that for me, because that's what I wanted more than anything. And it brought me so much joy when someone actually did that. So, yeah, simple things like that make a big difference.
yeah,
Dana, any advice on your end?
Man, I really don't know how to follow up all of the advice from Ashley and Mike. So, but something that I think I would also add on to things, I suppose, is also remaining steadfast. There's definitely a certain degree of resilience that you have to like keep pushing forward, but that's incorporates into remaining steadfast in building the community around you that can be the examples of and be the people who you can rely on. Remaining steadfast in wanting and still striving to accomplish the different goals, whether it's I'm getting up that mountain and I'm getting that elk. Um, or to something like I do. So I do work a lot with the wildlife sciences and conservation. And over the years, especially whenever I was actively going through the multiple types of surgeries I was having for my eye, um, was remaining steadfast in still wanting to participate in the research that I was doing. So even though I wasn't able to do a lot of the because when I was going through my surgeries, I couldn't lift certain things because turns out a lot of pressure goes to your head when you're lifting heavy objects and heavy equipment. And so I was pretty used to that. And then all of a sudden, I went to not even being able to lift something as heavy as a 12 pack of soda for months during my field work. But however, I was like, there's no way that I'm not going to be a part of the work that I've been planning for months and months and months. And so I continued to like get out into the field and still do the things even not even if not in the capacity that I could fully do. So I couldn't lift the equipment, but I could be there and I could still participate through being able to identify certain plants or animals or being the data scribe for our research team. So there's different ways of adapting to how the world around, because if you're, especially if like Anita, you talked about having gone through so many different changes so recently and having to do with new chronic issues. Very similar to me, this happened. I lost my vision seven going on 8 years ago now, but I'm still relearning many different things. And so it's remaining steadfast in understanding, like, even 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 20 years down the line, our bodies are still going to remain changing in ways that we can't predict. And so figuring out how can I still participate in these things that I love and am passionate for in new and different ways. So it's also not just finding the things that can help us adapt, but also remaining adaptable ourselves and remaining steadfast in that.
I love that. And I think it's a good reminder. I know I've heard people say that like having a disability and like being part of this population, it's one of the only minorities that you can become at any time. And that most of us end up becoming at one point or another in our life. And so we should all be invested in making things accessible because it will affect us at one point or another. And it affects us in the moment if it's not accessible to a community member or a family member that should be there. So I love that and can definitely relate. I was supposed to have one very simple surgical procedure in December, and that turned into five more this year in the midst of going back to grad school in January, which was a lot. And also just having to think through the realities of like, I've got livestock and I live out in the middle of nowhere in rural Montana. And so when they told me you can't lift more than 15 pounds for 6 months, I'm like, that's hilarious. How am I gonna feed my horses? Like, and so I actually had to ask them, like, look, we're in Montana. I can't possibly be the first person to ask you, how do I feed my animals? Let's figure this out. And it turned into like, okay, we got to buy more expensive hay that flakes off differently. Sometimes you got to feed them one flake at a time, and figured it out and made it happen. But I was not willing to not have my horses anymore just because I couldn't carry their feed at the time. So definitely appreciate that call for resilience. I know we're coming up on time, so I just want to ask each of you if you have any closing thoughts you want to share. And maybe one last question more broadly, why is it important that hunting and the outdoors are accessible? And what do you think folks with disabilities have to contribute to these spaces? So maybe I'll invite Dana to go first this time.
Yeah. One, thank you for like organizing this whole thing. I'm really glad that we've been having this conversation because um, having acquired my vision disability later in life, I really thought that a lot of things were going to be more shut off to me. But it's communities like this one and like the research community that I'm a part of with conservation work have really demonstrated to me that this is still a space that can be welcoming for anyone and everyone who's involved, but in just different ways. So if I could end things on any kind of note, it's just because you may have some sort of disability or you are differently abled in whatever way, does not mean that you're not going to be able to participate in being a wildlife conservationist, a hunter, an angler. There's so many ways to adapt, whether it's the community that's around you, the equipment that you have available to you, or even just being able to be present and get connected with the world that's around you. Especially in this day and age where I feel like we're doing this online through a webinar and we have all of our fancy little moon machines in our hands. And to a certain degree, that has disconnected a lot of people from the natural world. And it's more important than ever to be as connected as we possibly can. Because it's up to the stewards of the land, and hunters and anglers are in part stewards of the land to help protect it and take care of it and be a part of the system. Yeah.
Man, I planned on breaking this into smaller reels to share out on our social media, and you guys are giving me a really hard time to do that because everything you're sharing is so powerful. Thanks for that, Dana. Mike, I'll turn it over to you.
Just kind of recap, it's yeah, I found out, you have your dreams, and when you're differently abled, or something happens to you, you have these dreams. For we have dreams for Kinsey. She's going to do this. She's going to do this and this and this. When you're differently abled, those dreams, become 1 year dreams, 5 year dreams, 10 year dreams. It's a moving target, and those dreams, set yourself a goal. And like you said, the first time you're going, okay, I'm going to go fishing at the city park pond. Next time, I'm going to go to somebody's pond, out or go to a river. And I'm going to get with somebody, and we're going to go try to go hunting this fall. And it's important just because, otherwise, if you, I hate to say it, but if you pity yourself and I'm just going to live within myself and just going to stay in a house, that doesn't do yourself any good. It's amazing how just getting out, getting fresh air, getting away from what you're normally having to deal with, what it will do for your soul. And I've seen it with Kinsey and so many others, that just that opportunity, and I go on some of these hunts, and yeah, we don't kill anything, and hunters don't kill anything, we don't catch any fish, but that's not the main part of it. It's just that getting out there, do whatever it takes, just get out and see what the world is outside your four walls, uh, and it'll do so much good for your soul.
Absolutely. Being out in nature is definitely healing and grounding in so many ways. Thanks for that reminder, Mike. Ashley.
Well, now I have to pivot quickly because Mike took my answer. But no, I totally agree that there's a lot of healing to be found in the outdoors. But I think what a lot of people also don't understand is that the outdoors could care less about your disability. Like the great outdoors is the great equalizer. It does not care what you think you can and cannot do. It does not care what you think your limitations are. It is what it is. And that ends up being a lot of the limitations that you have are the ones that you put on yourself. And I know that's easy to say, and in the heat of the moment, it can feel a lot bigger than that, but it's worth it at the end of the day. And like I said, surrounding yourself by the right people is probably the biggest thing I would say. You're going to find a lot of people that will, and they're not trying to be mean, but they'll tell you what won't work. You need to find the people that will tell you how it's going to work and be willing to be adventurous and try some things that you probably never thought you would try before. And it's okay to screw up too. I cannot tell you how many times I have landed flat on my butt or flat on my back trying something. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not a time we don't want to try that again. My friends all like to tease that I'm the guinea pig. If we don't kill Ashley doing it, we'll try it with someone else. And as much fun as that is to joke about it, it's always been so worth it, even the times we've quote unquote failed. And I don't look at those as failures. I just look at them as, okay, well, let's not do it that way. Let's try it a different way. And so I feel bad all the time when I hear about people and they're talking about why they don't get out or why they can't. And as gently as possible, I try to explain to them those are all boundaries, that barriers you're putting up. Like those don't have to be there. And so just really encouraging people, like Mike said, even if it's, and I say just getting outdoors, like that's somehow less than hunting and fishing and things like that. But start small. I used to tease people, go outside and get your mail, go to the mailbox and get your mail. And in Wyoming, sometimes that can be quite a trip. And so it starts like that. And then the more you push
Yeah.
yourself and the more you challenge yourself, the more you'll realize what you're capable of and what's available and what you get out of it. I've never known anyone that ever went back
Mhm.
that was like, I used to love the outdoors and I'd rather stay inside now. I've never met anyone that said that before. There's really no going back, I think, once you find that peace and that healing and whatever that looks like for you. And then you get to a point where next thing you know, you're taking other people and then you get to share that with others. And so I would just encourage people, whatever it is that you think is a boundary or that's in your way, really reevaluate that and see if that's something that you're doing or that people that you shouldn't be with are doing for you. Maybe you need to find some other people, and they're out there, trust me, and they're looking for you too. So yeah, don't put up obstacles on your own that don't need to be there. Get out there and challenge yourself however you can, and it'll be worth it.
So get out of both of the hypothetical and the literal four walls.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, each of you, for sharing. This has just been so informative and inspiring and uplifting. And thank you all for the incredible work that you each do in your own spaces in your own ways. I do want to uplift for those who are watching the recording or listening in. We did post last week some really cool books and films featuring folks with disabilities outdoors. And one book in particular that I'll uplift because I've read it and I found it really helpful was The Guide to Accessible Birding. So, kind of along the lines that all three of our panelists today have shared, hunting and angling is magic and definitely get into it. But if you're looking for an easier entry point to the outdoors to start, birding is a great one and is accessible to all sorts of folks. And the book has some really great tips and guidelines of ways to make it accessible, ways to make it accessible for you, depending on what your access needs are. And I will say, I was never a bird nerd until I bought this house that I own now last year. I live kind of right on the border of Montana and Wyoming, and I live surrounded by agricultural fields right next to the Bighorn River. And I have documented 90 species of birds from my front porch.
Wow.
It took me 18 months, but that's the magic of like even just sitting in one place on my front porch.
Mhm.
Getting to enjoy nature and the outdoors has just been awesome. So definitely check that book out if you're interested in birding, and check out all of our panelists. They're tagged in our social media posts uplifting the webinar. We'll tag them in the recordings we post. They all have incredible stories and do incredible things. So continue to follow them. And thanks for coming, everybody. Thanks, Mike, Ashley, and Dana. Really appreciate all three of you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thanks.